David was a man in the peak of his strength, vitality, and abilities. And David had begun to wax great, and David had begun to grow wise. And David was beginning to unbraideth not. And so, because David was waxing great and growing wise, and because he was beginning to unbraideth not, Satan came before David. And Satan appeared as a strange and beautiful woman, holding a harp, with the setting sun behind her. The woman in the red dress, and her thick black hair was woven with eagle's feathers and perfumed with oil, and her neck was draped with fine gold chains, and her wrists and ankles hung with fine gold chains, ornamented with small golden bells shaped as pomegranates that tinkled as she went. And she said, I know that you are a clever artificer, skilled in word and sound and structure. Yet your great works go unrecognized by the minds of men. Therefore, fall down before me and worship me, and I shall be your muse. Your greatest works shall be yet to come, and you shall not go unrecognized, but shall be the envy and the desire of mortal men and women. And your goings out and your comings in shall be to great occasion, and your glory shall not wane before all the days of men. David stood silent. Shall your great works go unknown before all the days of men, and your sore travail be in vain? It must not be so. Answer me, therefore. State your desire and declare that I am the Lord. David responded, Though I am a clever artificer, skilled in word and sound and structure, I build my buildings and sing my songs to the glory of the Lord. I love my wife and desire not occasion. Of course not. You are a great shark of the sea and will not be confined to such shallow waters, Satan exclaimed happily, as David was transported to the treasury of Solomon's temple, and Satan was transformed into an angel with the likeness of a man, with great eagle's wings, seated behind a wheel. His hands moving so fast as to be a blur, spinning sparks of fire into golden rope, the diameter of a man's little finger, which another angel cut and wound up in huge spools, taller than a man's upstretched arms, and as wide as a man's outstretched arms, so that 3 men could not grasp each other's fingertips around it. And the treasure chamber was vast, and was filled with such spools beyond number. And beyond that chamber were other chambers, likewise filled with such spools, and the chambers were beyond number. From behind the spinning wheel the angel addressed David, the humming of his hands never ceasing. I know that you are a man of great purpose, and so fame holds no weight with you. But being a man of understanding also, you know that money answereth all things. Fame's vanities bloom and wither in a single season, but gold and silver lose not their luster before all the days of men. And while the angel spoke, David was transported to another treasure chamber, several levels above the previous. But the disembodied voice of the angel continued without interruption. The gold I spun and pressed for Solomon in his age, for his purposes, continues even unto your own time, satiating the coffers of the rulers of men, and lending itself to their purposes anew. And while the voice spoke, David beheld in this upper chamber another angel, with a great curved sword of iron in his left hand, and a great hammer of iron in his right hand, and an anvil before him. And there was an engraving on the face of the hammer, and an engraving on the face of the anvil. And with one chop of the sword, and one blow of the hammer alternating, and the golden rope unspooling of itself continuously from one of the giant spools he had seen in the lower chambers. With each chop of the sword, a portion of the golden rope, the length of a man's little finger, was severed. And with each blow of the hammer, the angel pressed one heavy gold ingot, with the seal of Solomon on one side, and the image of the king on the side which the hammer had struck, producing these ingots at a rate of one every second. And the coins were deposited in a large shining brass vessel the size of a wine cask. And these vessels of coins were beyond number, filling the chamber, which was vast. And beyond this chamber were other chambers, also filled with coins, and the chambers were beyond number. And although he could no longer see the angel with the eagle's wings at the spinning wheel, his voice continued to address David throughout this, without interruption. And he said, "Will you toil in the ditch, and the field, and the storehouse, all the days of your life, beneath the selfish aims of vain and stupid men, to whom our Father, in his cruelty, has haphazardly bestowed riches? It must not be so. Therefore fall down before me, and keep my instructions perfectly. And I will lend you the golden rope in lengths beyond measure, so that no imagination of your heart shall ever be beyond your means before all the days of men. Answer me and state your desire," the angel demanded. David responded, "Although it is true I am a man conceived of purposes beyond my meager means, the Lord has always provided everything I need. And I am assured that if my purpose is great, my means shall meet it. I love my life and desire not riches." "Of course not," the angel laughed. "You are a great lion of the plain and will not be bound or caged." As he spoke this, one of the gold coins fell to the floor and produced the clear tone of a bell ringing. And David beheld the image of the king was changed to the image of Caesar on the coin. He picked up the heavy gold ingot and beheld on the reverse a double-headed eagle with outstretched wings, holding 13 arrows in his talons, 6 in the left claw and 7 in the right. And when the ringing ceased, David looked up from the coin, and he had been transported to Rome. At the balcony of one of the upper chambers of a massive palace, looking out on St. Peter's Square. The angel was before him again, this time in the form of a Roman centurion, with skin like white marble, and a Roman nose, and his eyes were like white marble, with a dimple at the pupil. He wore a leather skirt of overlapping segments in 2 layers, each leather strip being the shape of an elongated diamond, like a modern necktie, and arranged so that the center of each leather strip of the outer layer was aligned with the seam of the 2 underneath, so that the skirt laid like the scales of a serpent, with no gap between the segments. And he wore a golden breastplate and a golden buckler on his right arm, and held a long spear of iron in his left hand. And on his head he wore a golden helmet with a central plume of eagle's feathers as a crest, running from his forehead to the nape of his neck. And he said, I am the angel Apollyon, Lord of the power of might, and I am the whole of the only law of men and beasts alike. I know that you are a forward and upright man, who cannot be swayed by gold. And because there is no subtlety in your dealings, you cannot be undermined or turned to the right or to the left by any means. But being a man of understanding also, you know that while money may be a means to an end, power is the end, in and of itself. And because you do not covet the mantle and are reluctant to the reins, you shall be righteous in the power of your judgment. David stood silent, and the angel continued on. Will you bear the humiliation of the yoke and suffer under the boot of fools and kings all the days of your life, acquiescing to the perverted whims of those to whom our Father, in his cruelty, has haphazardly bestowed authority? Will you watch on as the meek and innocent are trampled underfoot by those eager in their wickedness and delighting in delivering punishment? It must not be so. Therefore, fall down before me and worship me, and declare that I am the law, and there is no law beside me. You shall calculate my times and tabulate my ordinances in perfection. And in return, I shall lend you my spear. And in the day that you pick it up, all the wicked of the earth shall fall as wheat before your ark. And no army of man shall ever challenge the power of your might before all the days of men. And no righteous judgment shall be beyond your power to execute. And in your might there shall be peace. Answer me and state your desire, the angel boomed. David responded, "Though it is true that I groan in pain by day, and cry in shame and anguish by night at the wickedness of the rulers of men. And though I languish in the stench of their rotten fruits, and rend my clothes at the punishment of innocence, beyond my power to amend, I am assured that the wisdom of the Lord is infinite, and for everything under the sun he has purposed a judgment, though angels comprehend it not. And it be hidden from man in the arrogance of his heart. Therefore I love my lot, and desire not station. Instantly, David was thrust into utter blackness, and the voice of the angel no longer boomed out, but rather whispered in his ear. Of course not, for you are a clever serpent, wise above all beasts, and not affrighted of the very low, but well accustomed to the deepest depths. And you are carried, not as prey, but as the pride of a soaring eagle, sovereign above all beasts, and not affrighted of the very high, but well accustomed to the highest heights, and will not be encompassed by the ring of power, but will soar above it. And the angel appeared behind David as a scribe in a brilliant white linen ephod, and the hood of it covered his head. In his right hand he held a quill of an eagle's feather, and at his left side an inkhorn hung on his belt. And the purity of his ephod was so blindingly bright that it was painful to behold, and could not be looked upon directly. And all around them was nothing but shining blackness. And he said, I am the angel Lucifer, and I bestow all wisdom upon men. I am the Lord of light, and the only truth that there has ever been. I know that you are a man of great wisdom, and because I see into men's hearts as you see through clear glass, I know that you are not concerned with anything the world of men has to offer, but will settle for nothing less than understanding. You have passed my final test. Though our Father in his cruelty takes glory in concealing a thing, it is the duty of kings to search out a matter. And so, in my mercy, I will lay bare his nakedness before you. I am the God of this world, and there is none beside. Only I can tell you who you are and why you are here. Therefore, if you fall down before me now and declare that I am the Lord, and set your eye upon me and mine alone, you shall be my co-heir and share dominion over all the powers of this world throughout all the ages of men. And in the darkness of this room, I will whisper in your ear all the secrets of the lower realms and all the secrets of the earthly realms and all the secrets of the heavenly realms. And I will whisper in your ear all the workings that our Father has forbidden from the comprehension of men. I will fracture the murky glass before you. Time and distance shall fall away as scales from your eyes. The curtain shall utterly unravel, and no thing shall be beyond your understanding. Your goings out shall be in the blinding whiteness of my light, and your comings in shall be in the shining blackness of this room. And in my blinding whiteness, and in my shining blackness, our Father shall not see you. You shall surely not die, but hidden from his sight, you shall exceed your 60 years, and surpass the boundary that our Father, in his cruelty, has set up as an allotment to the days of man. I shall set you over the cycle, hidden from his sight, to rule with me in eternity. Then Satan looked into David's heart and smiled widely and beseeched David, "What sayest you, chiefest among men, unto the chiefest among angels?" But David stood silent in the blinding light and shining blackness, and was struck still. And he cried out in his heart, and searched for the presence of the Lord, but found it not. Then the pain and the torment blanketed David, and the visions consumed him, and horrible terror seized upon him, such as he never could have imagined. And sudden fear gripped his heart, and the stench of death overwhelmed him, and he could not speak. For try as he might, he could not perceive the presence of the Lord in this place. And as he felt his heart fail him from weakness, his own voice surprised him, and the words came from his mouth without comprehension or any thought beforehand. And he said, You have mistaken me for a shark of the sea and a lion of the plain, and beasts high and low. But I am none of these. And David grasped his rib and unlocked the compartment of his chest and opened it to expose his heart. And Satan looked in and beheld his name written there. And David whispered in his ear, I am man, I am that I am. And Satan wailed and became as a wilted lily, and clutched his belly in his left hand, and clutched his heart in his right, and cried out, His wisdom hath eclipsed his understanding. Man has become as one of us, and greater still. The creation has surpassed its creator in every respect. Truly, the clay smasheth the potter, and the wheel worship the vessel. And Satan and all his angels, and every green tree and beast of the field, and all the rulers of men bent their knees and lowered themselves and fell down on their bellies and pressed their faces into the dirt and worshiped David. And David was sore afraid and rebuked them and cried out in shame, for the terror of the Lord was upon him. Then the Spirit of the Lord descended on David and lifted him up. And David danced his secret dance vehemently before the Lord. And the tips of his toes did glide across the surface of the darkness with the lightness of a feather, as the tip of an eagle's wing upon the surface of calm waters. And never did he turn his eye to Satan and his angels and the rulers of men on his left hand, nor to the trees and the beasts of the field on his right hand. Nor did he ever so much as glance upon them. But every turn of his dance was forward, and every movement upright. And he granted them not occasion before all the days of men. In a little dark room Back of my throne, that's where the evil goes. In a little dark room, that's where the evil